Welcome back, everybody. John Aravosis here, Friday, January 27th. We are here to talk about Ukraine. Welcome to the Aravosis Report. Hey, everybody. How are we all doing tonight? Long week, almost over. I will get the TikTokers going on my iPad while we're waiting. Introduce yourselves, if you would, while we are waiting. But yeah, a lot of news today. Oops, trying to get my phone to it. Oh, there it is, upside down. I got one of those phone, magnetic thingies, and it's taking its time. TikTok is claiming it's loading forever here. Let's see if TikTok even joins us today. I may have to close it and start it again. Oop, that was weird. All right. TikTok's being a little evil. Let's see what happens. I think I may have to close TikTok and start it again. Well, that was a little TikTok's like grinding slowly here, and I'm not sure why. Well, we'll see, folks. Give it a minute here. We'll see. We may have to start TikTok over again. It's just maybe TikTok itself is going slow tonight. Hey, Glorious. Good to see you again on Twitch. Everybody else. Like I said, I'm a little nervous about how, hey, TikTokers, I see you're arriving now. Yeah, TikTok was going a little slow. I don't know what was going on. Hopefully it's working. We shall find out. Anyway, if anybody's new here, we usually wait a minute or two anyway for folks to arrive on YouTube, TikTok, and elsewhere. So let's wait for that. And is the sound not working on TikTok today just to be evil? Of course not. All right, I'm unplugging my good mic from TikTok. That should fix the TikTok sound problem now. All right, TikTok sound is back now. Still no sound. All right, I'm going to have to hang up on TikTok and come back. All right, TikTok is being very evil today. Lost connection. Jesus Christ. And now, all right. Sorry, guys. This is what we get. TikTok is being very evil today. Oh, it's like Elon Musk bought it or something. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, man. I can see the whole. Hold on. I'm going to close TikTok entirely. Start again. One moment, guys. Thanks for joining here. Here we go. TikTok live. Add a title. That's never a good sign. Ooh. Hang on a second, guys. Sorry, we're having like weird TikTok difficulties tonight. One moment here. It's trying to bring up some screen for me. I'm not sure why. Come on, TikTok. This is TikTok glitching out tonight, clearly. That's not my iPad. Anyway, well, introduce yourselves, guys. You know how this works. We take a couple minutes anyways for introduction. So let's see what's going on with this weird TikTok thing that's going on here. All right, I'm going to add title, Daily Ukraine War Update. There we go. All right, live goal in place. Go live. All right, let's see what TikTok does. Very weird. All right, that's way quicker now. Okay, hopefully TikTok is working again. Let's see. That was very strange. Well, anyway, we're going to see. We're going to see. There we go. Okay, TikTokers. Actually, I unplugged my good mic from TikTok, but that's okay. We will use the room mic on TikTok. People will survive. All right. Anyway, guys, well, let's wait another minute or two for the TikTokers to get rolling in. Hopefully TikTok's little glitch got straightened out here. Hey, y'all. Yeah, TikTok was glitching. It's not clear why. So I unplugged my good mic, and now we're using the room mic, which gives more reverb, but it's okay. Okay, thank you, Jingle. All right, guys. Yeah, let's I'll wait another minute max just for TikTok to get booting in. Sorry, everybody. Anybody who's joining us now, or especially people who come later. What do? We have our glitches. All right, I'll start to do an intro while we're waiting for TikTok to come back on, but this is good. So I am John Aravosis. Welcome, everybody. This is the Aravosis Report. It's my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Oh, my neighbor Barbara. Hi, Barbara. The 6 p.m. Eastern Time U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine, and then I take your guys' questions in the second half of the show. If you want to provide any questions, or if you've got comments on the news as I talk about it, feel free to enter them on TikTok in the Q&A link that is in my profile. So just go to my TikTok profile, click Q&A. You can leave questions there. And on YouTube and everywhere else, the comment box works. Obviously, I love when you guys leave gifts because I am doing this for free. I'm doing it full time. So your guys' gifts help pay the bills, help me keep going. So on TikTok, if you want to do super chats and super stickers, thank you. Samantha, thank you for the hat on TikTok. I was going to say for the super chat, I will always make a point of getting to those as my next question as a priority. And for you guys on TikTok, I will always try to do a shout out if I see your gifts. So thank you for those. Let's get rolling. So tomorrow morning. Yes, tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, I will be having another coffee talk, which will be, thank you, Inspired Woman, which will be a hangout exclusively for TikTok subscribers. Thank you, Jesse James. Those are the paying members on TikTok. So that'll be 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. If anybody sort of missed it, if the mods want to keep reminding folks, that might be nice. All right. So, Russia, as usual, Russia bombed the hell out of Ukraine last night. They fired 70 missiles. Two of them, interestingly enough, were this newer hypersonic missile. Russia's got some new missiles that go, I found the speed here. I think it's like 9 times the speed of sound or something, 5,000 kilometers per hour or 3,100 miles per hour. They are very difficult to intercept because they're so fast. They are clearly too fast for the current Ukrainian abilities to stop them. But there is great hope that the American Patriot missiles and the new SAMPT system that the Ukrainians are hoping to get from the French and the Italians sometime soon. Thank you, Ali, for that. Both countries said that they are, in fact, working on getting the systems to Ukraine, would be able to fix the problem, hopefully, which is great, to take down the supersonic missiles. As you know, Ukraine is waiting for 4 Patriot missiles to come in, one from, at this point, I should say missile batteries, so the missile systems, one from the US, one from Germany, and 2 from the Netherlands. At this point, it is an American-made system. Just to give you a little more information, I was doing just a little more research on the Patriots. Patriots have a range of up to 160 kilometers or 100 miles. That means each battery would basically protect a city or a strategic installation. It's not like the kind of thing that you protect the whole country with, right? A single interceptor, so a single Patriot missile that goes up to intercept, costs $4 million. Okay. I mean, it's a lot, right? This is not a cheap system to use. Therefore, Patriot missiles are not used to take down things like the Iranian drones. The Iranian drones cost something like $20,000 each. You're not going to use a $4 million Patriot to do that, right? But what it is good for is taking down things like Russian ballistic missiles, or in this case, these KH-22 hypersonic missiles, because they're very expensive missiles, can do a lot of damage. So it's worth spending a $4 million missile to take down a multi-million dollar missile, but they're not cheap. Having said that, there's a lot of interceptors available for the Patriots, so that's good. From what I was reading, it won't be a problem for Ukraine to get more, which is good. Poland announced today that it is delivering 60 more tanks to Ukraine. These are not the German Leopard 2s, but are instead modernized tanks that the Poles themselves have created. At least 30 of them are going to be PT-91 tanks that are Poland's main battle tank, and they are tanks that Poland has created itself, which is great. I'm not sure about the other 30 tanks, whether they're created by Poland. What is good is all 60 of the tanks are modernized, which is great. I think we would still have to see how they compare to the Russian tanks. My guess is going to be they're similar in some ways, because I know I had read that the Polish tank was based off of the Russian or Soviet T-72 tank, but nonetheless, perhaps with the modernization, they might be better. But honestly, even if they're on a par, that's great, because the Russians they've got way more tanks than the Ukrainians have. But the good thing, thank you, Matt, for that. The good thing is the Western tanks Ukraine is getting are so far beyond what the Russians have. I mean, crazy far beyond. Thank you, Natalia. They're way better at defense, meaning it is much harder for the Russians to destroy the tanks, and it is way easier for these tanks to destroy Russian tanks, including, I was looking at some stuff right before the show. One of the two neat things actually that the Western tanks can do versus the Russian tanks. One, they can fire from a greater distance. So in other words, the Russian tank could still be, how do I want to phrase this? as soon as the Russian tanks are in range of our tanks, we can fire. But we are not in range of the Russian tanks because the Russian tanks have to be closer up. So we, or in this case, the Ukrainians, would be able to destroy Russian tanks from a distance when the Russian tanks still can't even reach the Ukrainian tanks. That's a huge deal. Second point is the thermal imaging, basically being able to see at night. And what they were saying is the Russian tanks basically will not be able to attack very well at night at all, whereas the Ukrainian tanks, meaning the Western tanks that they're getting, will be able to just pick off the Russian tanks at night really badly and from a distance of several miles away. So anyway, good news, but these tanks have got to arrive, obviously. In terms of other tanks that are coming, so we know that Poland, let's see here. I was saying about Poland. Poland has also promised 14 Leopard 2 tanks, which are the German tanks. Poland sent 250 tanks last year. These were the Soviet-style tanks. I was looking as far as who else has the German tanks in NATO, as far as saying who might be able to provide them. I came up with a list of 13 countries, reading the other sources out there in NATO and NATO-friendly countries, right? Sweden and Finland. And the 13 that have Leopard 2 German tanks are Canada, Poland, Greece, Spain, Turkey, Hungary, Denmark, Portugal, Norway, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. Now, NATO applicants Sweden and Finland also have substantial numbers of the Leopard 2 tanks, so that's good. So far, we're looking at maybe 80 Leopard tanks that have been promised to Ukraine so far, or that they're expecting. We don't have a list of all of them because I think some of the actually, we know a lot of the promises were made at that it wasn't just a NATO meeting, it was an allied meeting of supporters of Ukraine in Germany last week at this point, last Friday. A number of them got together. Thank you, Wolf, for the gift there. A number of them got together and made promises of Leopard tanks that they would provide Ukraine, but the list has not been made public that I know. We do know that we've got 14 British Challenger tanks coming, 60 Polish tanks, as I just said. Thank you for the glasses there. 31 or more US M1A2 Abrams tanks, possibly some French Leclerc tanks. The French tanks are a big deal as well. Very good. That was Marcy. Thank you, Marcy, for the glasses. The tank, this is the French main battle tank. So that's a huge deal if the French do end up providing their Leclerc tanks. Ukraine's ambassador to France said today, this was interesting, and this I can't quite make heads or tails of. Thank you, Mark Jessen. Ukraine's ambassador to France said today that 321 heavy tanks have been promised to Ukraine. 321. Now, I was adding up everything, and the most I could get were 245, and that was being kind of generous. That was even adding in the Polish tanks, which are older tanks, right? It's and based off a Soviet model. But even adding in the 60 Polish tanks, I was only able to get to about 245. So my guess is, as we said, to get to 321, you start throwing in the other promises that came during the meeting last week in Ramstein. Thank you for the paw there, Megwood. Anyway, good news though. Good news across the board. So just to remind folks, this is the Aravosis Report. I am John Aravosis. It's my nightly show. I do Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. One of the, Patty has a whale. Thank you, Patty. We've got a Friday night whale from Patty. We'll do the wave. Thank you, Patty. Yeah, throw some waves on the screen for Patty. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. I also, one of the other ways you guys can support my work, in addition to the waves and the gifts on YouTube, the super chats, is we've got a Discord. And do check out the Discord. Tonight, we can go for a little bit and hang at the Discord. I've been going almost every night this week, but we can go a little bit tonight too. It's a really nice community. It's just a nice kind of hangout community. 2 people even got engaged to be married. So it's a friendly community. But one of the neat things we do there is I've got auctions going, and I auction off a number of goods we've gotten from Ukraine, some cool stuff. And what we do is we take the profits from the auctions, and 50% gets channeled back into helping Ukraine. We've bought boots for soldiers. Thank you, Sig Sauer. We just recently helped buy some drones for the soldiers. Thank you, Great CFI. And 50% of it goes to me to support my work because I'm doing this full time. And nobody's paying for it other than you guys. So you're helping me actually keep doing this. So I appreciate it. Just to show you the two sort of nicest things we've got going right now. I've been showing you all week, but what the heck? Thank you, Andrew, for the hat, for the ski stuff there. This is Azovstal steel bracelet. Basically, bracelet the Ukrainian government put together to raise money for the troops. We bought them from them, and they thank you, Corey with the corgi. These are made from steel from the Azovstal plant, which is the plant where in Mariupol, actually, I'll even show you in the map. So Mariupol is southeastern Ukraine, all the way over here. This is the town where the Russians went just nuts on them. Thank you, Al, for the goggles there, where the Russians went just crazy, bombing the hell out of it. It was a town of 450,000 people. It's probably down to 100,000 people now at best. That's the town where the Russians bombed that maternity center. Remember where they killed the woman who was pregnant with the baby that was on the stretcher and ended up dying? Thank you, Carlos, for that. It is also this one you're going to remember. Mariupol is also the town where the Russians bombed the theater, the cinema theater, yes, a drama theater, where it had written on the sides in Russian the words children, so that the Russian bombers were no children were inside, because it was being used to literally house women, elderly men, and children. As a air raid, place to hide, and the Russians bombed it anyway and killed several hundred people. So that's Mariupol. Really, crazy what the Russians have done there. Anyway, the Ukrainian troops held out. 2,000 Ukrainian troops held out. Thank you, David, for that. Held out against 14,000 Russian troops. 2,000 Ukrainians against 14,000 Russians for a good 2 months. And in order to honor it, the Ukrainian government made these bracelets out of the last steel from the steel plant that the Ukrainians were held up in. They're not making any more of these. We got the last handful of them, and we're auctioning them off. But like I said, they're very cool. They're made from the steel. You can see at the right angle, it's got the Ukrainian trident on it. You can see, beep, there you go. They're really cool. A number of folks have gotten them. They really like them. And the other really cool thing, and we just auctioned off the first one yesterday, and I'm auctioning off the second one. This is now available to everyone in my Discord. Yesterday, previous auction was only for, thank you, Alan, for that. The previous auction was only for paid subscribers. This one is for everybody. I wanted to open it up for everyone. This is Cool Little Box Orc Busters from the Ukrainians. Made by a Ukrainian charity, and it contains 2 pieces and a very nice fact sheet. If I can get it out of here. Yep, very nice fact sheet and 2 pieces of a Russian fighter jet shot down over Ukraine. It's shot down near Kharkiv. Titanium. It's a Su-30 SM fighter jet that was shot down, they believe, in March, actually. But the Ukrainians basically harvested it. Thank you, Joy and Andrew both. Harvested it, and the charity was not auctioning them off. They were basically taking contributions for the military, and if you gave a $200 contribution as a gift, they would give you the parts to the plane. So we threw in several $200 contributions, and we're now auctioning them off. The first ones went off yesterday. These are now auctioned off now. And again, 50% of the proceeds will go to Ukraine aid. 50% will go to support my work, because I am doing this for free and doing it full time. So I got to pay the bills. Thank you, Addie, for that. All right. It's at discord.aravosis.com. You can find the Discord link in my profile. Just click that link. It'll take you to all my links, or you guys, aravosis.com. All right. Let me keep rolling here. So Russia, this was actually kind of funny. So in response to NATO offering all these tanks to Ukraine, Russia turned around today. It's hilarious. Actually, and if the mods, if you want to help folks, just to direct them to Discord, discord.aravosis.com. Thank you for the ski goggles there. The Russians responded today. And I sometimes the Russians just boggle my mind, because they say things and they think that they're helping their cause. And I don't know how they think they're helping their cause. But the Russian TV did a broadcast showing how, we have new tanks as well. The Russians have a shipment of tanks they got from Laos. And the Laotian tanks are actually Vietnamese tanks that were built during World War II, that made their way through the Vietnam War. And then after the Vietnam War, they're World War II tanks, literally. After the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese gave their tanks to the Laotians, and the Laotians just gave them to the Russians. Um, these things literally look like they're out of a comic book or out of a history book. They're these little tanks. The best part was watching the video, and you see like the Russian military guy, and he's going, they got two different military guys, and one goes, they work very well. And he goes, they even drove themselves off of the platform. And you're looking at this going, wow, he's very proud that the tank actually drove. Another soldier basically said, he goes, I was actually pleasantly surprised that they work. I mean, a tank is a tank, but a tank isn't a tank when it's from 1945. That ain't a tank. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. And especially when NATO is going to be providing some of actually the best tanks in the world to Ukraine. Thank you, Verna, for the happy Friday. It's good news. I mean, it's good news for the Ukrainians, obviously. Thank you, Hazel. But yeah, be careful of those Vietnamese World War II era tanks. Look out, folks. I mean, if you're on the ground standing alone, it can kill you. Yes. But otherwise, as Ham just said, they're museum pieces. Ukrainian Air Force spokesman says it will take Ukrainian pilots about 6 months of training to master the F-16. This was interesting. I mean, they're not training yet, but what they were saying is it'll take about 3 to 4 weeks for you. This is the Ukrainians saying this. It'll take 3 to 4 weeks for the Ukrainians to basically learn to pilot the F-16s, just to fly them, right? And then it'll take another 5 months for them to really learn how to maneuver them and, all this kind of stuff. Who knows? Hopefully it's true. Nobody is talking about giving the planes yet to the Ukrainians seriously. The German defense minister ruled out sending fighter jets to Ukraine. It was either today or yesterday. If NATO comes along, maybe NATO will come along eventually. There was a lot of talk yesterday about the fighter jets. I think, we're talking about long-range rockets first getting to Ukraine, and then we can see about planes because we're not even ready to give them long-range rockets yet. But, we shall see. What else we got? Ukrainian troops arrived in Germany for training on the Marder infantry fighting vehicle. It's Marder, M-A-R-D-E-R. Berlin promised to deliver 40 of these to the Ukrainians. This was around the same time. Actually, it was the exact same day that we promised to send the Bradley fighting vehicles from the U.S. A little more background. Oh, this was good from CNN. CNN gave a little more background on the Marders and why they're so good. So listen to this. According to CNN, the Marder is an infantry fighting vehicle used by the German military since the early 1970s, but continuously upgraded. While the German military is in the process of phasing the vehicle out, hundreds are still in service. An infantry fighting vehicle is a heavily armored vehicle used to move soldiers around the battlefield. It is also armed. It's usually deployed together with main battle tanks. And actually, I was watching a really interesting video today talking about the interaction of all of these main battle tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, infantry, helicopters, you name it, artillery. And it was basically doing it's a little complicated even for me to explain because I'm not necessarily the military expert, but it was basically talking about how all of these things work together. You can't just fight with tanks. You can't just fight with infantry fighting vehicles. You can't just fight with artillery. You need them all together. Thank you, Andrew, for the snowboard, because they all complement each other. The tanks protect the infantry fighting vehicles. The infantry fighting vehicles, protect the infantry, but they themselves can be tanked out, can be knocked out. It all goes together as far as being able, and this is some of the, thank you, Loyalty, for the flowers. This is why people like General Hertling have been saying that the training will take a while because it's exactly, Rohirrim just said combined arms. It's not just training the Ukrainians to drive a tank or drive a fighting vehicle. They've got to learn how to use them in a combined fashion so that I always compare it to playing on a computer game on your computer, if you've ever played computer games, where you've got all these different weapons. You've got the tanks and the planes and the bombs, but you've got to use them in unison when attacking, and you've got to learn how to do that. And of course, a little more complicated probably on the battlefield than Sim City or Civilization 5, not 6. We don't like 6. Let's see what else we got here. do keep the super chats. Oh yeah, do keep the super chats and the gifts coming on TikTok. I appreciate those guys. Thank you for that. Estonian intelligence. This was not so good news, but try to give you guys the truth. Estonian intelligence is saying, I didn't like Sim 6. Sim 6 was this whole outer worldly thing. I couldn't stand it. In any case, Estonian intelligence is saying that Russia may be capable of up to 9 months of massive missile attacks against Ukraine. The Kyiv Independent reports, according to Estonian intelligence chief, Russia still has up to 1,250 high precision missiles left from its stock of 2,500 before the invasion. Also, Russia is continuing to produce missiles, which is therefore helping it, keep up as well. So this contradicts what we've been reading about. Now, let's see who's correct here. Thank you, Crusher, for that. Let's see who's correct, because we've also seen people saying that Russia only has 2 or 3 super big volleys of attacks left. Yeah, we're hearing maybe they've got 9 months worth. So who knows? Who knows? The European Union renewed its sanctions against Russia today for another 6 months. I think that's pretty much, don't worry about the 6-month thing. That's just a pro forma thing. Basically signaling to Russia that, we're going to keep renewing the sanctions for a period of time. And if you end the war and give the land back by that time, we'll end the sanctions. So, good news, but expected news. Belgium is providing Ukraine with 92 million euros or $97 million in military aid. The package will include air defense systems, anti-tank weapons, ammunition, grenades, machine guns, automatic rifles, and light armored vehicles. This was an interesting story. We don't know much about it yet. But the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces reported today that they will be forming a first in the world armed drone attack unit. And basically what Ukraine has had to date have been reconnaissance units. And there was a really neat broadcast on CNN about this at the beginning of the war, showing that Ukraine went and got Ukrainians who were drone aficionados. They were just amateur drone operators. And they got them all into a unit working together. They got them like motorbikes, basically. And these guys would go around, send their drone up, look for, and they'd have the GPS, look for the Russian troops and the Russian tanks and everything, get the exact GPS coordinate. They would send it to the military command, and the military command would then send in artillery and blow up the tank. And it was within a couple minutes, so the tanks wouldn't be able to get away. But it was just reconnaissance at this point. It wasn't, dropping bombs. Now, we do know that the Ukrainians have been also dropping bombs from the drones. Thank you, 6 Hour. There's a lot of video of that, well, I've seen. I think a lot of you have seen. I've not been showing it because it can be a little gross, because you literally see close-ups of Russian troops getting bombed. So, I'm not going to show you guys. But nonetheless, that's been happening. But this is apparently the first ever autonomous unit of drone operators, that they're going to be given drones, ammunition, Starlight satellite internet kits, and other equipment necessary to fight the enemy. So in other words, it sounds like they're literally going to be a fighting unit, and they're going to be, the 101st drone operators. They're going to have their own bombs, their own internet, and they're going to go scout out the Russians and attack. And it's going to be, it sounds very, I don't want to say exciting. I realize this is war, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool advancement, and something not only the Ukrainians can do, but typical of the Ukrainians, though, as far as the kind of cool stuff they would come up with. Do check out my Patreon as well. I do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Aravosis. Patreon's a really neat way of helping creators, not just me, but any creators you guys follow out there on TikTok or elsewhere. It's a way of making a contribution on a monthly basis, like $5 a month or something. And you just lock it in and it automatically bills you until you cancel it. But what's nice about it from the creator side, since a lot of us are doing this for free, like I am basically, it allows us to know how much money is coming in each month, rather than, trust me, I love getting your guys' gifts every night, and they're actually very helpful, a lot. Your guys' gifts make a big difference, actually, for paying my bills. Speak of which, Frate with the whale, thank you with the wave, Frate. But what's nice about Patreon is also having a set amount of money, $500, $1,000, whatever that is coming in each month. So do check that out too. It's patreon.com/Aravosis. As always, you can find the main link in my profile. You guys, aravosis.com, you can just go there. Let's keep going. So, Cynthia, we got, well, no, this may be turning into a whale night on TikTok. Thank you, Cynthia, for the whale. Appreciate that. Turning into a little bit of a whale night, I think. It's happening. Oh, and I'm almost done with the news, and then we'll get to the question and answer. Just to remind you, TikTok, you can submit the questions via the Q&A links in my profile. And for the rest of you, obviously, the comment box at the bottom. Let me keep going. Thank you, Crusher, for the Friday gift. President Zelensky is not happy with the International Olympic Committee. Thank you, El. I reported last night that the IOC is saying that they want Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes to compete in the Olympics, but to compete as neutral athletes. In other words, they would not be competing under their country's flags. Now, somebody had pointed, I think it was Elise, maybe, somebody had pointed out last night, and I thought it was an excellent point, that in countries like Russia, and honestly, it's like authoritarian countries, especially Iran, same thing. Sports are not apolitical. You don't have Russian athletes competing in the Olympics. And just because they're not under the Russian flag doesn't mean they're not basically working for Russia, and doesn't mean that Russia doesn't get a big boost out of it when they win. They do. Russia gets a huge propaganda boost for every Russian athlete that wins. So that's still a problem. The Patreon address is patreon.com/Erevosis. But for any of my addresses on TikTok, just go to my profile. There's a Linktree link. Click it. Everything's there. Everything. Even my everything, actually. I was going to say my whatchamacallit, my resume, that LinkedIn. That's the Linktree. My LinkedIn, everything's there. And for you guys, just erevosis.com works. So Zelensky is going to basically launch an international campaign to try to get the Russians and the Belarusians kicked out. So we'll see. Yeah, good luck. The per CNN. So this is the last story. This was interesting. I read this story yesterday, and I thought I would just summarize it for you guys because I thought it was very interesting. And it also opens up kind of some philosophical arguments. So there are 5 Russian men who are holed up at the airport in South Korea. They fled there. Thank you, Deb, for the super sticker. They fled to South Korea to get away from the military draft in Russia. Back in October and November, okay, 3 were in October, 2 in November. Their applications for refugee status were refused and denied by the South Korean Justice Ministry. So they've been at the airport's departure lounge for months waiting for a ruling on their appeal. So they appealed, and I guess the South Korean said, fine, but you can stay in the airport because it's international territory or whatever. You can't actually come into the country. The information from the story here, they're provided with 1 meal a day, which is lunch. But for the rest of the day, they're living off of bread and drinks. They're able to shower, but have to wash their clothes by hand, and they cannot leave the departure and duty-free areas. And to me, this is interesting because it raises an interesting question of, who's a political refugee? And we talked about this originally with the whole issue of, I didn't know there was a Tom Hanks movie. Is this sounds vaguely familiar. Was this in Asia? I'm trying to remember the Tom Hanks movie. But the issue is, are you a political refugee simply because you don't want to fight in a war? Or do you have to be a refugee that is a conscientious objector, right? Somebody who, because of my morals and ethics, I cannot permit myself to fight in wars. Or because of my morality and ethics, I cannot permit myself to fight in this war, right? But if you are simply not fighting in the war because I don't want to die, is that sufficient to make you a political refugee? I mean, it's a very interesting question. And you also kind of get the issue of, which is an interesting question of, should countries, even if you're not quite a political refugee, should countries maybe consider giving people who don't want to fight in wars refugee status? Because, if you don't want to die in the war, that still is, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting question, right? Especially when we're talking about Russia. Actually, let me step back a second here. And I just see, hey, Paul, I'll get to yours in a question, your question in a second there. In politics, right? I mean, I've worked in politics for 30 years, and I worked in the US Senate for a number of years. And one of the things you look at in politics is, what goal are you trying to achieve, right? so that even if we don't like, let's say we don't really like these Russian guys who are trying to come abroad to not fight because most of them aren't conscientious objectors. They're not people who, are morally opposed to the war in Ukraine. They're morally opposed to themselves going to war in Ukraine. A lot of them, I think. They don't want to die. They were fine with it until when somebody else was dying from Russia, right? So they're clearly not conscientious objectors. They're not Quakers. But if we want Russians to not fight, if we want Russians to flee their country, right? Wouldn't we want to provide an incentive for them to leave Russia? Not just to leave Russia, provide an incentive for them to not fight, make it that much harder for Putin to get soldiers, you could argue. So that maybe you want to be providing asylum because you want to have Russians basically leave their country. Now, again, goes 50-50 because the kind of Russians who are leaving, though, are not Russians who are anti-regime. They're just they're anti their own butts getting kicked in the war. So it's an interesting question, though, like I said, even from a public policy perspective, exactly. Tim C is saying on TikTok, like our guys going to Canada during Vietnam. That was one of the examples I was thinking of was, did Canada have any restrictions at all? Or could any American who didn't want to fight, go to Canada? Right? You didn't, did you? I don't think you had to be, I oppose my government or whatever it is, right? Could you just be like, I got drafted and I don't want to fight? I think you could go anyone. Yeah. So it's a really interesting question. Thank you, Anne, for the pinata there. Anyway, that's the last story I've got. So let's dig into the Q&A. And feel free to weigh in on this in the Q&A as well. On TikTok, as I said, submit your questions via the Q&A link in my profile. For the rest of you on, Crusher. Thank you, Crusher, for the Galaxy. That's always one of my faves. Thank you for that. For the rest of you, obviously, you can use the Super Chat on the bottom. Super Chat, Paul, hang on. You are correct. Thank you for reminding me. Hey, Paul, I watched a Deutsche Welle report, a German media report about the under-resourcing of German forces over the last few years. I imagine rearming all NATO forces will be an issue. Thoughts? That's funny. Somebody had brought that up at the beginning of the war when we were talking about, because Germany initially, and again, I think Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, kind of did himself a bad deal. He constantly was making decisions that made Germany look bad, even though in many ways Germany did come around and, well, clearly, with the tanks, they really came around. But Germany has provided a lot of military support to Ukraine. Thank you, Anne, for the pancakes, which I may be making those for breakfast. Now you got me thinking of breakfast tomorrow. Under resourcing. When we were talking about so initially Germany offered like 5,000 or 12,000 helmets or something to the Ukrainians, and everybody was like, "Are you kidding me? You're offering them, and you're offering like a couple thousand of them. Like that's it, helmets, right?" And some of the Germans were saying that. There have been a lot of news stories over the last few years of how the German troops are not actually very well supplied, and how that was sort of a larger issue for the Germans. Now, I don't know if Felix is with us tonight or anybody else who's up on sort of the German issue, but that's an interesting question. So that may be what Paul is talking about. I didn't see the Deutsche Welle story, but that's an interesting question. That's a really interesting question as far as the under-resourcing of German forces over the last few years. Now, I imagine rearming all NATO forces will be an issue. I will say that German forces should have better arms or themselves be better, whatever, their uniforms, whatever it is they're lacking in, because especially with what's going on with Russia now, NATO needs to be better prepared. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I'll look and see if I can find it afterwards. How does this war get won by either side? That's a good question. Kef is asking from Twitch. This is what makes this war difficult. Thank you, Ben Haliski. For Ukraine, it is understandable. And I will throw Ben's question up next. For Ukraine, it's understandable what is considered victory, right? Ukraine has lost 18% of its country to the Russians. The Russians currently control more or less all of this, okay? More or less where my fingers are. That's about 18% of Ukraine. Ukraine wants it back. Anything short of that would not be a victory, especially the land that Russia took in the last year. Ukraine's got to get the land back, because if there's any kind of okay, the Russians took Crimea in 2014. The Ukrainians want that back. But, you could argue getting us back to where we were the day before the invasion last year at least means this invasion wasn't worth it for the Russians. So at least getting this back. But anything less than getting this back, which is the territory Ukraine lost in the last year to Russia, means the invasion of the last year was worth it for Russia because they got some extra land. So from Ukraine's perspective, I don't know how I want to define winning, but defining losing would be Russia getting any more land than they had on February 23rd of last year, the day before the invasion. From Russia's perspective, winning should be any additional land than what they had the day before the invasion. Russia really screwed up, because Russia had the opportunity to say, we went in, we cleaned house, we destroyed their military, we taught them a lesson, right? All this kind of stuff before they actually annexed. Thank you for the lights there. Who was that? Pam. I think Russia had a real opportunity to declare victory if they wanted to, and say, we went in. Remember, he was calling them Nazis and stuff. We went in and we beat them, and we destroyed their equipment, and we set them back a decade. They are not going to threaten our people anymore. And what happened? Who knows? So yeah, I worry about what's considered victory, and the reason defining victory becomes an issue is peace talks. How do you establish an everlasting peace between these two? I don't know that you can, because no matter what happens, if any part of Ukraine is occupied by Russia, Ukraine's going to want to attack again. Thank you, Paramarine, to get it back. And there will always be friction. There will always be efforts to get it back. If Russia doesn't get all of Ukraine, with which Russia wants, Russia will always be going back for more, because Russia's made clear they don't think Ukraine's real. They want all of Ukraine. And Russia's going to keep trying to get that. So I've always said that, winning, let me rephrase it this way. I will not define what is winning for Ukraine or Russia. Let me define what is winning the peace. I think winning the peace is going to be Ukraine getting back all of its land, and then NATO immediately putting its nuclear umbrella across Ukraine. Now, that could be the United States doing it. I think it's safer to have it be NATO overall. I think you would probably have to have NATO peacekeepers on the ground, so that basically it says that if Russia invades, they will kill NATO. If Russia invades again, they will kill NATO troops. And if they kill NATO troops, then they're at war with NATO. And it's the only way to keep the Russians from invading again. Joining NATO would be a really easy way of doing it, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. That's a perfect example. Brian Letourneau is saying North Korea, South Korea border. Exactly. Where we've got 20,000, at least last time I checked, 20,000 American troops in South Korea, with a lot of them at the border, so that if the North Koreans invade, they kill American troops and they're at war with the United States. Now, does America have the political fortitude to do that? Does the Republican Party? Some in the Republican Party would. Others, like the MAGA crowd, would not. Donald Trump, just the last couple days, Trump is complaining again. Trump went off about sending tanks, as did his minions in the House of Representatives, complaining that we're sending tanks and nuclear weapons, and there'll be nuclear war, and I could end it in a day. And of course he could end it in a day, because he would give Ukraine to the Russians. Trump previously, I'm not exaggerating, Trump previously had done an interview at the beginning of his administration. It might have been right before he was president, but he was a candidate, and he was being interviewed, and he said that Crimea was Russian. It was totally fine for Russia to invade and take it. The people there want to be part of Russia anyway. This is not the guy who would be standing up. And this is also the danger of America changing presidencies. I mean, we're a democracy, so that's what happens. But you could easily have the wrong guy in office, and all of a sudden, America's NATO commitments don't mean anything. So, kind of scary. What else we got here? Oh, that's right. We had, hang on a second. That was Ben's. Hey, Ben, thank you for the super chat question. Sky News reported today that Russian state TV said Scholz, the German chancellor, oh, I did see this, is the second evil Austrian mustache man. Yes, they used the word. and that Germany, NATO was launching Operation Barbarossa 2 against Russia. Now, I will admit, I don't know what Operation Barbarossa is. I saw it today and I meant to Google it and I didn't Google it. I am a foreign policy guy. I am not a military guy. And sometimes the military stuff goes beyond me. Somebody want to tell us really quick? Thank you, Patty, for that. I appreciate it. We'll do the wave. Somebody want to tell us really quick what Operation Barbarossa is? Shoot. And I feel bad because I saw it mentioned in the quote and I didn't look at it. The German invasion of Russia. Okay, there you go. Okay. I didn't know the name. Be nice. Like the German invasion of Russia. Okay. So what is interesting with this is they also called, who was it? The German foreign minister. They also called her Ribbentrop. Which that one, okay, that name I do know. That one made me laugh because the secret Nazi Soviet pact that not only kept the Soviets out of the war, but also gave the Nazis the green light to invade Europe, the rest of Europe, and made the agreement to partition Europe, okay? That was a deal between Molotov and Ribbentrop. It was called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So for the Russians to have the nerve to call a German leader Ribbentrop as though that's like an insult, when the Russians were the ones that had the secret agreement with Ribbentrop that helped start World War II. I mean, they're unbelievable. But this is where you get, for people who lie about history and who lie, I mean, for policy, people who lie as a political tool are just unashamed about it, or unabashed. So in any case, yeah, I mean, I saw it. I was like, whatever, you know. The thing is, the Russians don't have anything left. All they have is insults, you know. Now, I will say, again, we know the Germans are worried. We know the Germans were worried about taking on Russia more by giving these weapons. Therefore, if I'm the Russians, I have got to do everything possible to scare the hell out of the Germans. I have got to. I've got to, right? If I'm Putin. So I'm going to keep threatening Germany. I'm going to keep comparing them to Hitler, because also they're trying to make the German people feel bad, you know, and say, well, gosh, are we? You know, I mean, what's the famous British skit? You know, are we the baddies? I mean, they want the Germans to sit there and go, is it us? You know, are we really being bad? Are we being Nazis by doing this? Right? So Russia has nothing else left than to just cause all this fear, really. You know, it's really bad anyway. But that's who they are. I mean, they just, you know, they say stupid stuff because it's all they've got. Actually, there was another thing on Russian TV last night you made me think of for whatever reason, but there's a clip going along. It must be from, it was from Francis, is it Sclair, I think, who's from the BBC. And he translated the clip from Russian TV last night, and it shows the Russian TV commentator saying, NATO and the European Union have sanctioned us, and they're trying to hurt our economy. What economy should Russia emulate, you know, to sort of get through this? And they pull up, they go, Cuba, Iran, or China? And people are looking at this going like, really? These are the economies you want to emphasize? China, you know, but Iran, and a number of them agreed it should be Iran. Iran should be the economy that Russia should emulate in trying to get its back on it, to get it back on its feet. And I was just loving it. Like, okay, sure, guys, you go be you and be the Iranian economy. Anyway, all right, let me pull up TikTok again here. My glasses easier to read. Well, we just talked about what Trump said about the war. Do not take the Russian threat seriously at all. If Ukraine takes back Crimea and there is no longer a land dispute, will they become eligible for NATO membership? Sure. Yes. The question, though, becomes whether NATO is comfortable with it, right? I think you're going to have a number of NATO countries that are going to play the, you know, those Ukrainians, they're not like us, right? They're not developed like we are. We don't want them in our club. So you're going to have that. Then you're going to have the, I see somebody who turned the Jews into the Nazis is weighing in. Okay, there you go. You're gonna, oops, hang on, let me the question again. Crimea. So you're gonna have the crowd that kind of racist-y towards Ukraine. They're going to say, well, you don't deserve to be, right? You don't deserve to be members of NATO because we don't like you. You're going to have the crowd, which is not 100% wrong, but that says, well, the Russians, thank you, Harold, the Russians are still going to be going after your land. And do we want that threat to NATO? Because it means NATO will have to fight. Well, I mean, guess what? The Russians also covet the Baltic states, right? Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. The Russians totally want those three countries. So that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have joined NATO, right? The bigger problem is that if, thank you, Hazel, for the pinata. The biggest problem, and and Nathan, thank you. The biggest problem is if Ukraine does not get its land back, because then it's an open territorial dispute, and that does not work. We can't have people joining NATO that have open territorial disputes that are literally at war in essence, because then we get sucked into the war. But I still think you'd have NATO players who would say, well, sure, Ukraine got its land back today, but the Russians are going to invade again. We don't want to be on the hook for that. Now, the response to that, thank you, Crusher, is Russia, if we make Ukraine part of NATO, Russia's not invading again. Russia found out it couldn't even beat Ukraine. I mean, Russia's or at least they're having a hell of a time doing it, right? This has been going on where we are now into the 11th month of a 3-day war. It ain't going well for Russia. If Ukraine becomes part of NATO, Russia can't beat NATO. I mean, clearly they can't beat Ukraine. They can't beat NATO. So if Ukraine becomes part of NATO, Russia's never attacking Ukraine again. So, and we've also seen Ukraine pretty kick-ass militarily. Now, they've got to get their act in gear on the corruption side, and they are, which is good. And Zelensky's really been going into overdrive on that this week, getting rid of a lot of corrupt officials, which has been great. So they're going to need to do other things like that. But having said that, Turkey's a member of NATO, and I'll bet you Turkey's corrupt as hell. But nonetheless. But it'll be great. No, Ukraine would be a huge addition to NATO in terms of just militarily. I mean, clearly. What else we got here? You guys feel less chatty today than usual. I'm getting fewer questions. Well, let me look at the TikTok questions. One was deleted. Where? On TikTok? The only thing is, guys, I can't see. It doesn't show me offhand what your names are. I can see the questions. I think by spring we're drawn into this war anyway. Well, that's interesting. Stu is saying, I think by spring we're drawn into this war anyway. It depends what drawn in means. I mean, we're in this war anyway, right? I mean, we're in this war anyway. So what does drawn in mean, right? I mean, there were already our tanks. That the U.S. is actually fighting Russia directly. I don't see that happening. That doesn't happen unless Russia uses nuclear weapons, biological or chemical weapons. Otherwise, we're just going to provide better and better weapons to the Ukrainians. I think. Would love to. Somebody's inviting me to Belgium. I would love to go back to Belgium. Tank 2. I have no plans to go to Europe anytime soon, but I would love to. I was in Belgium several years ago. A friend of mine was the NATO intelligence attaché in NATO headquarters in Belgium, and went and visited him. And well, long story short, but we went because there was a big festival happening in Ghent, and we went to Ghent, and I had the most fun of my life. The most lovely town, just amazing. Discovered Belgian waffles, which, you hear about Belgian waffles. I never had a Belgian waffle. I was like, it's a Belgian waffle, big deal. This thing, Belgium, okay, the Americans out there will appreciate a real Belgian waffle tastes like a huge gooey chocolate chip cookie. It was the most ridiculously decadent. I'm thinking it's a waffle with chocolate on it. Oh, anyway, it was in Ghent. The nicest people. I thought it was beautiful. It reminded me of Amsterdam very much. A little bit of Venice, a lot of Amsterdam. Lovely people that I met. And I did something I think I told you guys this. I did something for my blog about it. And I had it still's around, America blog, but it was one of the big American blogs. And I did a picture essay of my visit to Ghent and just talked about how lovely everybody was and all the photos. It got picked up by the local media in Ghent. Somebody saw it, translated it, and did like their own photo essay of my photo essay, the people in Ghent found me on Facebook, and I got hundreds of thank yous from the people of Ghent in my Facebook. And it was the most adorable thing you'd ever seen. It was just, I mean, it was lovely. It just, anyway, it kind of, anyway, so yes, but I would have never thought of going to Ghent in my life. Just the most lovely, lovely town, lovely people. And the food was great. Yeah, it was very cute. But yeah, but I loved that it was like I was famous for a week in Ghent. I would definitely go back. It was wonderful. But yeah, I've not been to Europe in several years. I'm dying to go back. And Belgium, I don't know Belgium very well outside of Ghent and Brussels. I've been dying to go to I'm forgetting, but some of the other cities is that what is it, Bruges, or what are some of the other ones that everybody says to go to? And I'm fluent in French, but the Dutch side, forget it, or the Flemish side. I mean, I would have to speak English there, but Bruges, I'm told, is really nice. I'm forgetting where else. I thought Ghent was just lovely. Sorry, don't mean to do a whole travel blog here for everybody, but it was pretty cool. Stockholm, been to Stockholm twice. Stockholm was lovely as well. Antwerpen is nice too. Okay. All right, sorry, we'll do a little more news here, and then we can talk about travel. Thank you, Joe Warren. Well, if Russia has hypersonic missiles, why aren't they using them? I mean, they used 2 of them last night. Okay. My question is a couple things. 1, they probably don't have a lot of them. 2, they're still kind of testing them, I suspect. 3, they could be extremely expensive. Russia is having to do the same thing we're doing, which is Russia's got to worry about, well, what if war breaks out with NATO? Russia may need those missiles, right? If war breaks out with NATO, they may not want to use them all. And again, it depends how many they've got. They may only have a handful of them, but they used 2 last night, so they did. Also the problem kicks in is that once Ukraine gets the Patriot missiles and then this new system from the German and the French, was it SAMPT, I think it was called, that in principle, those will be able to shoot down the hypersonic missiles. At least that's the goal. So, but good question, but I suspect it's because they just don't have that many of them. Oops. Let's see here. No, that's interesting too. Vernon saying perhaps certain NATO members are wary of Ukraine as a future competitor in the economic sphere. Ukraine has already demonstrated their military prowess and has the potential to be an economic power. Yeah, and think about this too. Look, if you're German, you've already, and I mean, I'm not the expert on the EU, but I do know stuff. Germany has done a lot to support Greece, for example, right? The poorer countries in NATO, thank you, Hazel, for the Friday greetings. The poorer countries in NATO have get subsidies from the richer countries. Bringing in Eastern Europe already had a price. The Germans had to incorporate East Germany. That was a huge price for them, personally. Bringing in Ukraine will also entail a lot of EU subsidies, I would think. Oh, I'm thinking EU, not NATO. I'm sorry. I was thinking the EU. As far as Ukraine and the EU, I think that could be a real issue. And whether they're able to charge cheaper labor and all of that, I don't know. But for NATO members, there's an interesting question. I don't know whether it's NATO as much as it is EU. Like, would the future competition in the economic sphere matter as far as NATO? Although I guess if you've got the NATO protections, it helps you. Lisa, go ahead, ask a question. If you've got the NATO protections, potentially it lets you channel more money into your economy because now you've got and make you more interesting to business, right? Because from a business perspective, you're probably a safer country if you're a NATO member than if you're just Ukraine sitting on your own on the Russian border. So yeah, Lisa on TikTok, feel free to write a question. I will sit here and look. And if it's good, it better be a good one. Ukraine, the breadbasket, that's valuable. Yep. And apparently they've got minerals and stuff too. I don't think a lot of the I don't think the hypersonic missiles from Russia are going to really matter. That Russia would have to have a lot of them. Yeah, no pressure, Lisa. We're all watching now. Septis? I don't know what that means. I've never been to the Baltics. That's another place I'm dying to go. Western Europe, a ton. East Germany, back in the day. Greece, Russia, a few times. But I have not been, Austria. I've not been, and I haven't been to Eastern Europe beyond East Germany. Really, I've been dying to go to Eastern Europe overall. In the Baltic states. Thank you for that. Whoever did the ka-ching. Moldova. Now, Moldova, you know why I want to go to Moldova? Because I love that I can't even pronounce it. Is it Zdu, or whatever it is? That group you guys have that performed in the Eurovision? Oh my God. Or Zdub, or whatever. Oh my God. They're fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Because I loved the song they did in Eurovision. And then that's Moldova, right? And then I went and watched a bunch of their other videos on YouTube in the last week. And oh my God, they're wonderful. Like, I love this band. They're crazy. It's really interesting. Anyway, check it out, guys. But if somebody knows what I'm talking about, write the name. It's like Zdub Zdub or Zdub or something like that is one of the singers' names. But they're the Moldovan entry to the Eurovision contest. Just wonderful. Oh my God. I can't play it or I'll get zinged by the well, on TikTok it'll be okay, but on YouTube the gods will strike me down if I do that. Thank you, Ellie, for that. The Galaxy. All right, I'm gonna go another minute or two. I've not been to Poland at all. That's another country. So I haven't been to Eastern Europe. Dying to go to Poland. We'll definitely have another watch party for the Eurovision. That was fun last year. But no, Poland, I've been dying to. I've got to. I haven't been anywhere interesting. Now, Mary, it's possible that we accidentally blocked you on YouTube. Mary, do you want to tell people on TikTok, on YouTube, what your TikTok handle is? Because some of the moderators can look and make sure we didn't block you. But Zdub. There you go. That's it. However you pronounce it. But Zdub. They're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful, Votan. They crack me. First of all, I find the music, I'll stop because I know we're closing up the Ukraine portion. I don't mean to talk all about Moldovan music, but it's Aerovoice is not me. Do not try Aerovoice. That would be somebody else. Don't try that. Yeah. Spell it my way. But they play it's traditional music, but kind of rock. I had read that they're considered punk in a way at the same time, but mixed with this traditional music. Oh, just lovely stuff. And the energy level is just like, they're goofy, really nicely goofy. All right, let me look really quick. I remember I can't do all the questions here. One sec here. I don't know if they're training in the F-16s. That's interesting. We kept hearing about that. I don't know if it's official. Do we know if there's anything, if that's happening? I don't know. All right. You know what? Let me give a quick recap, guys, and then I know there's a lot of copycats account. I know. I try to get TikTok to verify me. I'm going to look and see how many copycats there are again, because I was able to at least cut back on a lot of them. But if there's a lot, I'm going to ask TikTok to verify me again. All right, guys, let me do a quick recap of the stories we talked about tonight, and then I'm going to go to the Discord for a little bit and then call it quits for the night and then make some soup. You missed the whole show. Well, I'll give the quick Reader's Digest version in a minute here. So, all right. Oh, and remember, tomorrow morning, TikTok subscribers, which are the paid subscribers on TikTok, I will be doing a coffee talk, a conversation with you guys exclusively at 10 a.m. Saturday morning, Eastern time, U.S. That's 10 a.m. New York City time. So 2 of the 70 missiles fired by Russia towards Ukraine last night were, thank you, Hazel, the Kinzhal type hypersonic missiles. Ukraine is trying to get Patriot missiles and SAMPT anti-aircraft basically the defense systems in order to take them down. Poland is going to deliver 60 modernized tanks to Ukraine, which is a huge deal, in addition to the Leopard tanks that they're providing. I then went through who has Leopards in NATO. About 13 different countries have them. Meanwhile, Russia has responded by importing tanks from Laos that were made in World War II. We'll see how well those work. Ukraine's Air Force spokesman says that it can train its pilots how to master the F-16 in only 6 months. Hopefully that's true. Ukrainian troops arrived in Germany today or this week for training on the Marder infantry fighting vehicle. Berlin has promised 40 of them. The Estonian intelligence says Russia may be capable of up to 9 months of massive missile strikes against Ukraine. The European Union renewed sanctions against Russia for another 6 months. Belgium is going to provide Ukraine with 92 million euros or $97 million worth of military aid. The package includes air defense missiles, anti-tank weapons, ammunition, grenades, machine guns, and more. The General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces says that they will be forming the first ever in the world attack drone units. So basically, they're units devoted to using drones to attack with their own weapons, which should be kind of interesting. Zelensky has said Ukraine will launch an international campaign to prevent Russian and Belarusian athletes from being allowed to compete in the Paris 2024 Olympics. And finally, per CNN, thank you, Ben, for the Friday gift there. Per CNN, 5 Russian men who have fled after the government tried to draft them have been stuck in the South Korean airport since October and November. The South Korean government, thank you, Paula, for the hat. The South Korean government has been refusing to agree to their asylum request, and pending appeal, the men are basically camped out in the airport. They are given 1 meal a day and otherwise stay in there. So, and we talked about whether we feel sorry for them or not, and I'm kind of divided. So, all right, guys. There we go. Let's head on over to the Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. We can go. I'll hang out there for a little bit and then make dinner. I did snack before the show, but I'm getting hungry. Remember, we've also got the auctions over on the Discord, so we can help you kind of figure that out if anybody's confused. But for the if you're new to the Discord, as always, you got to go over, look for the README, click the README. There's an explanation at the bottom. It says, I click and accept the terms, blah, blah, blah. Once you do that, then the rest of the Discord will blossom and bloom, and you will see it all. Left-hand column, you'll see the auctions, but you'll also see towards the bottom, John's after party. Look for that. That's where we'll be hanging out. And I will be there with my audio. Make sure you click the button to turn the audio on so you can hear me. And then we all chat. It's fun. It's a fun crowd. Very chatty, typey chatty. But otherwise, thank you for joining. Thank you for the gifts tonight, guys. Thank you to the moderators again. And other than the super chat, or I should say the TikTok paid subscribers, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, I'll be joining you guys in a private live. Otherwise, I will see the rest of you on Monday. Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. And remember, set your calendars. Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. That's New York City time. I do this show for an hour every night, Monday to Friday, like clockwork. So set your calendar, maybe just, Monday to Friday repeat, and we can do it that way. Can you add your Discord to your Twitch profile? Oh, yeah. You know what? That's a funny point. Let me look at my Discord, because I don't even know if my link tree is there. If my link tree is there, I'd rather add that, because then my Discord is there and everything's there. But the Discord is discord.aravosis.com. But my link tree is aravosis.com. That'll take you to all of my links. But you're right. I'll look at my my Discord when the show is over and just update the link there. All right, guys. Sayonara. Let's head over to the Discord. Thanks, guys. Thank you all too. See you there.